Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this Innovation Forum webinar, which is entitled Beneath the Surface, How Data and Technology Can Drive Carbon Farming and Resilience at Farm Level. We're well known at Innovation Forum for our very punchy, catchy titles. So I hope that gives you an indication of what we're going to be talking about today. This is the second edition of a Beneath the Surface webinar that we've done recently. We've done some others with Bayer, and you can view the live recording or listen to the podcast version of earlier versions on our podcast channel or on our YouTube channel. We'll send you a link to it afterwards. So in this second webinar, we're going to have an interesting discussion and have lots of questions from you as well. You can use the Q&A function at the bottom of the screen to add your questions and comments. If I could ask you to keep them short and to keep them on topic. We always get somebody who likes to have a good rant about the state of the world or blame somebody for the misfortunes of the planet. But we are trying to be very focused in this webinar on data and its value and how we use it. And of course, as we all know, working in agriculture, data is the number one issue that we hear about across all of Innovation Forum's conferences, webinars, podcasts, YouTube videos, and other things that we do. It is definitely the number one topic. How do we get better data? How do we use it? How do we monetize it? How do we get it to help restore nature, protect the planet, and create the future of agriculture? So we're going to be talking about carbon sequestration and data, emissions reduction, supply chain resilience. And when we do votes at our conferences, we always ask, what's the number one word that gets the message across in large companies and others and with farmers about agricultural sustainability? And the number one word that usually gets voted for is resilience. So we'll be talking about that. We'll talk about some real life case studies. How do we bring this stuff to life? What does it look like when it happens? And look at how data can influence decision making at farm level. And we're going to talk about some digital solutions for carbon farming and the ever important issue of cross-value data sharing. So get ready, it's going to be fun. We've got some great speakers here for you. And joining me today for this discussion, along with all your good selves, is Lionel Alexander, Head of Carbon Business EMEA for Bayer, Kira Holland, Digital Science Solutions Manager for the same company, Valeria Forlin, Policy Officer from the European Commission at DG Climate, and Juan Palomares, Managing Director for Trinity AgTech. So looking forward to hearing from all of you. And just to note, this is being recorded and it will go on our YouTube channel and it will go out as a podcast. So if for some bizarre reason you're not already subscribed to the Innovation Forum podcast channel, you can find it on any reputable podcast platform, and you can see and listen on our YouTube channel and listen on Spotify or anywhere else to past editions of this webinar series and lots of other interviews and content we do to try and help inform the future of agriculture at Innovation Forum. So let me start with Lionel. Turning to you first, Lionel. Give us some framing opening remarks. What are we talking about today? And how does this fit with things like Regen Ag, which of course is at the forefront of many commitments? Lionel, welcome.
Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. We are really glad to be here today for this second session of Beneath the Surface, because we are really touching here a topic that is really close to our heart. And I know in this project that we are running in Bayer is not only because we are trying to develop new project, new things. We do think that there is really an in-depth reason to do that, because we are here addressing a question that is basically holding the world breath every day. And is how will we be able to still be there tomorrow, to have a profitable business tomorrow, to have a realistic agriculture for tomorrow. And that's basically what we are supporting every day. And for this session, I'm extremely excited because we will put our, let's say, our boots in the digital. And we do believe that digital is absolutely crucial and essential if we want to develop really sustainable and really robust project linked to regenerative agriculture. We need digital. We cannot do without it. So now it has to be managed properly and let's say diligently. And maybe a very quick note on what we are doing in Bayer in that respect. Let me just say very quickly, 4 years ago, we kicked off this project 4 years ago, trying to understand what all this is about. And 3 years ago, we basically have decided, okay, what makes a ton of sense if you want to develop some project in Europe is to focus on the value chain and the food value chain, because definitely there are very, very interesting elements to develop in these value chain topics. And so we have been focusing on value chain. And then 2 years ago, we finally managed to test, to prototype, to get some results from the business, and even to run the very first project. It was in Spain and Portugal on open field tomatoes, and it was so already extremely insightful. And 1 year ago, we just met with Trinity, and that's why I think it was a great moment, because they see we did find the perfect match and the perfect fit. You know, when you have a puzzle and you are looking for a piece that you don't manage to find, I think we found it, and they are here just to complement perfectly what we were missing. And I think it's we have a nice reciprocity in this collaboration. So yeah, we are very glad to be there today. We will hopefully express a lot of interest for you guys to understand what is really the power of digital in Regen Ag and how that's so important in our to manage any kind of project. So yeah, I hope we'll have fun. We have a great speaker with us today. And Toby, thank you very much for leaving the intro.
Thank you, Lionel. Well, looking forward to hearing from the rest of the speakers. So let's hear now from Valeria Forlin. Valeria, welcome. Thanks so much for joining us. Obviously, the policy environment, the enabling environment for making all this happen is incredibly important. So I imagine you're extremely busy. So thanks for making time to talk to us today. Why don't you start, Valeria, just briefly tell us about what is it that you do at DG Climate, and then let's talk a bit about carbon removal certifications and the schemes and challenges and opportunities that you see there. So Valeria, welcome.
Thank you, Toby. Thank you for having me and for organizing this interesting webinar. Yeah, so my name is Valeria, I work in DG Climate. This is in the European Commission, the department in charge of climate action, of climate policies. And the unit I work in, our team works on the policies for the land sector. We are responsible for a regulation on the land use change and forestry sector, LULUCF, for the people in the jargon. But these last couple of years, we have also been working a lot, and me personally, on a new piece of legislation called a framework for carbon removal certification. So this is maybe what I could talk about to give a bit of a policy context of what the European Union is trying to do in this space. So the context is that we have a target for 2050 that we want to be a climate neutral economy in the European Union. And to get there, the next step is to decrease our emissions by 55% compared to 1990 in 2030, and by 90% in 2040. So this is a very steep reduction effort that will see sectors like transport, industry, energy going to almost zero emissions through electrification. The case of agriculture, of course, is a bit different. Nobody expects the agricultural sector to get to zero emissions, but the agricultural sector can nevertheless contribute in many important ways, can reduce some of its emissions. So there is not as large a potential as in other sectors, but there is a potential. Can, of course, sequester carbon from the atmosphere, can provide negative emissions, so carbon removals through carbon sequestration in soils and in biomass. And it can also provide to the economy all those biomaterials that one day will be needed when we stop using fossil-based materials. We still need carbon for many chemical processes in buildings and in many industrial sectors. So a very central role for the agricultural sector. But this is a big transition, a big change for the way we use our land and for the way farmers manage their fields. And it's clear we cannot just tell farmers what to do, because farmers know best what to do in their fields. We need to rather empower them with all the data and information about their emissions, about the removals, about the impacts of their activities on nature, on biodiversity, on resilience, because all these data are a very important means for farmers to better orient their business models in the next years. So we tried to start from that angle to create harmonized rules to quantify emissions and removals on farm, because we also see there are already many tools, many methodologies to do that, but very different, with different assumptions. And for farmers getting into this space, it can be difficult to understand where to go, what to do. So the idea of the carbon removal certification framework is twofold. First, harmonized rules for quantification and for liability, for additionality, also for the assessment of the nature impacts. And second, a certification process, which is the same. Every certification scheme you will go to, you can expect that this is the role played by the certification scheme, this is the role played by the certification auditor, so the third-party independent auditor. This is a governance that needs to be in place. So you're a bit reassured that there is some harmonized rules in this space. So this is what the framework is about, quantification rules and certification rules. We are now at the stage where the overall regulation with the big principles is almost law. It was discussed with Parliament and Council and it was approved, and now it will go into the official journal soon. We still have to write the actual methodologies, so the delegated acts, they're called this secondary legislation with all the specific rules. And this is what my unit is working now, of course, with the advice of experts. We have an expert group which is advising us on the certification methodologies, and we hope to publish the first ones next year. Just also to mention that we see going forward that experts told us, I'm sure you agree, that we are moving towards an era of data abundance. So there will be more and more data, and we need to put them together in a way that makes them useful. So besides this framework for certification of the individual activities, we also proposed some rules to harmonize the national systems to put together soil data and forest data. So one proposal is called the soil monitoring law, and another one the forest monitoring law. And this, we hope, will make all this data about soils and forests speak together at the national level, so that also the quality of our national inventories, our national accounts of emissions in a country become of better quality. So I will stop there, and maybe we can continue the discussion afterwards if you have questions.
Yeah, a couple of quick questions, because you've been very efficient with time, Valeria.
Too efficient.
Okay. How will this benefit farmers? Let's be just really clear about what your views are there.
Yeah, so the business model we see for farmers now, of course, they will continue to produce food, and as I said, increasingly probably also biomass for the bioeconomy, but sustainable carbon, so activities that not only sequester carbon but are also good for biodiversity and nature, are becoming a commodity itself. Maybe the word commodity, not everybody likes it, but are becoming a source of income, a way to diversify their incomes, because companies downstream in the agri-food value chain, in the bioeconomy value chain, increasingly they make commitments to their investors and to their customers that they take care of their scope 3 emissions, of the emissions related to the production of the raw materials that they process. And this creates opportunities for farmers to get rewards for producing food and biomass more sustainably. Hopefully, in this kind of contractual arrangements across the value chain, the farmers it should not become a new way to put pressure on the farmer. It should become a way for them to engage in a constructive contract that brings them something. So for that, of course, we also have the Common Agricultural Policy in the European Union, which provides advisory services and support to initial investment. And the role of the Common Agricultural Policy is very important there to help farmers have everything they need to access these new markets and these new opportunities. But it also the finance can increase. It seems that increasingly could come from the private sector as well. So also in that light, we are thinking about how to make these voluntary commitments a bit from scope 3 commitments in the agri-food value chain more structured. We have a corporate sustainability reporting directive, so a directive that is very much inspired by the SBTi framework, and that puts into law how companies should report about the Scope 3 emissions. And we try to see with the stakeholders in the agri-food value chain how this can be one day harnessed to create policies that make this kind of arrangements more on a regulatory basis. Just yesterday, we had a very interesting workshop on this topic. So maybe I can put on the chat the link to the web streaming of the workshop if I can advertise also our events.
No, that's fine. I think everyone's very excited about this. I mean, from a company point of view, there's been a certain amount of carbon chaos, on the ground. How do we quantify? What are the how do we manage the different methodologies? So the work you're doing here is really important. So we'll take that and put that into the Q&A. A final question for you before we move on, and then more questions later, Valeria. You mentioned next year, so 2025, for some more progress on this. If you can look into your crystal ball for the next 2 years or so, when do you see more substantive kind of guidance and movement here for those watching to take note of? Are we talking kind of end of next year? Are we going to see something in operation in 2025 or 6?
Yeah. So in our work plan now, we have 2 things to do. One is write the methodologies, and I hope we can have the one on agriculture published mid of next year, summer of next year. The other thing is we need the rules to recognize the certification schemes that can certify compliance of operators and their activities with our rules. Because as I said, there are some rules also on the governance of the certification schemes. If you as a it's a voluntary framework, but if you as a certification scheme want to certify activities and say, I do it in compliance with the EU framework, it needs to be recognized by the Commission. The certification scheme needs to send some information and show that their tools and internal rules and procedures are in line with the EU rules. But these EU rules we still have to write, so that's also something we have to do. Although we have already the experience with the certification of sustainable biomass under the Renewable Energy Directive, and to be really honest, we kind of copied the rules would be very, very similar to those ones because we don't want to create just another set of rules. We already have those ones. So, but still, we have to write those implementing acts and then to recognize. So there will be some months maybe for certification schemes to apply. So I would not think that there is already a unit certified before 2026. And another important thing I forgot to mention is that in our proposal, we said every certification schemes can use the registries, their own registry, as long as the registries are interoperable, and we will say what interoperable means with some rules. But Parliament and Council asked us to actually come up with an EU registry by 2028. So we have some more time, but in 2028 we should also have a EU registry where all the units certified under this framework will go. So yeah, we have some work to do, yeah.
Yeah, plenty going on. Thank you. If you have questions for Valeria, audience, use the Q&A function. I see that Ken Pucker has gone first. Thank you, Ken, for asking, well, quite a complex question there in terms of answering it. We'll do our best to get to that, Ken. For those of the rest of you, please do use the Q&A function and we'll be able to put your questions to Valeria and the other panelists in about 20 minutes or so. But in the meantime, Kira, welcome. Lovely to see you. Thanks for your participation. Just give us a bit of an overview briefly, Kira. What's Bayer's journey been here from your traditional model to one that's much more in the digital and data space? Kira.
Yeah, hi everyone. Thanks for the introduction, Toby. So really happy to be here. Yeah, Kira Holland, science manager at Bayer. Been working in this space for 2 years now, and basically started very close to the beginning of our journey for the Bayer ecosystem services here in EMEA. And really how this journey has gone is, I mean, we really started from the beginning with basic Excel spreadsheets, just collecting data on farm. As Lionel said, we had projects on tomatoes to start off with, very small, just to dip our foot in the water. And again, using very basic Excel, just seeing how things were coming through in the results. And now we've really turned a corner. We played around, we gained insights from these projects, and now we have a fully fledged MRV system integrated with different partners ISO certified science behind the technology, and really taking a big leap forward and working with great partners like the folks at Trinity here.
Yeah, it's been fascinating to see the evolution of your company from, where you were 10 or 15 years ago to where you're looking to now to help enable outcomes using the digital sphere and using data better. Much needed. So what sort of capabilities have you got as a company here, Kira? Is it just you in an office on your own? Is it a team of 1,000 people? I think the audience would like to understand a bit about the scale of the transformation that's taking place in Bayer Crop Science.
Yeah, so definitely it's not just me. That would be very tough. But yeah, of course, we started off with, it was roughly about 2 people actually in EMEA specifically. But now we've grown to over 10 people specifically dedicated just to the Bayer EMEA ecosystems services. Of course, we have more in the general business itself. On the global scale for Bayer ecosystem services, we also have something around 160 people. So we've really grown a lot and put a lot of initiative and effort behind this over the last years.
Right, and give us some examples, Kira. Let's bring this to life. What sort of work are you doing? I know you're looking to expand the number of food and ag value chain projects and participating farmers, but perhaps you can bring this to life for us as to what this actually means day to day on the ground, working with farmers.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, some of the services and capabilities that we've now developed and are offering within the sustainability sphere. We've got data collection, we've now got monitoring and reporting, we've got analytics and insights, and then of course the general reporting. But really the way that we've built up our projects, for an example use case, we've got ADM, which I think everyone's familiar with at this moment. For example, with how we run these programs now, we have a group of support network within the countries, so Bayer program representatives, and they are utilizing our digital tools in conjunction as they're visiting growers to make the journey for data collection as seamless and easy as possible and limiting the burden on growers. And it's extremely simple, working in conjunction with how agronomists and the Bayer program representatives expect to collect data. It's very reflective to the environment and context that the grower is working in. So there's limited translation. And then we have the great MRV tool, again, partnered with Trinity, that we're able to ingest those inputs very quickly, be able to analyze any issues with data quality, any reporting flags that might come up in this space. Uploading evidence is a feature that we're working on right now to also improve that transparency and accuracy moving forwards. But then, of course, you're immediately able to start running those results and seeing those calculations. And from there, we have custom reporting on the background, and we're able to customize and make these user-centric reports based on what the customer needs are. So whether they want to see different types of incentives, brought to the surface and the top of their reports to see which growers are following different programs that they're valuing, or whether they want to see regen ag metrics and track their farm in this way. We're very flexible and now can offer this complete solution.
So what's the balance between a kind of cookie cutter approach that you sell almost like software and a more tailored approach for companies? And perhaps also, can you give us a sense of who are the customers here?
So the customers for us in this case are usually the value chain partners, so the folks like ADM. Of course, our customers are also the growers, because none of this would be possible without them, and they are crucial in this entire flow, in this entire journey. So they are definitely at the forefront of our mind when we're thinking about building these solutions. But of course, the value chain companies, we're really looking for them to incentivize the growers at the end of the day. And I think what really makes this a custom journey, if you like, or really takes it beyond just numbers. This is one piece where I think we have the edge in Bayer, and where we really bring our strength is bringing the agronomy to the table, bringing the extra farm context into the numbers, into the data that's going into these systems, to actually, instead of it just being a number, making it an actionable insight that can then be taken with the farm context, the changes that happen over the season, the challenges we know farmers go through, value chain goes through, and we're able to adapt these numbers and give this agronomic support and context behind it and adapt with them. So I think that's what makes it interesting.
So how do you bring this to life for farmers? I mean, the challenge for farmers is, as we all know, you know, that everyone's asking them for more data and more reporting and more, you know, and they've got to get on with the business of growing food on low margins. So if you're in a meeting of farmers and you really want to put it simply to them to make a business case for this, how do you do that?
Basically, for us at this point, we're trying to limit the burden on growers because of exactly as you're saying. So our focus has really been putting energy into our agronomists and our Bayer representatives being there on the farm with them so that the farmers can provide the data and inputs needed to get into these programs in the format of their choice, whether that's receipts, handwritten, fertilizer recommendations, whatever it might be, the way that they capture and have their information. They can provide that to our support teams, and we do the work from there. So we limit the burden as much as possible. We, of course, give the option if growers would like to log into the MRV system and kind of go on that digital journey if they want. But again, since we know they have so many different tools, so many different asks in this space, we completely try and limit this burden, and we have this whole system set up, the digital plus agronomy and Bayer supports, to hopefully combat that and make this journey as simple for them as possible.
Thank you. Well, lots of great questions coming in the Q&A. This is exactly the kind of thing we wanted, audience. Well done. Keep it going. We'll get to as many of them as we can. Thank you, Kira. Juan, let's turn over to you now. Unbelievably, some people might not be intimately familiar with Trinity AgTech. I don't know where they've been living, but some people may not know what you do. So just give us that quick overview of what you do at Trinity. Juan.
Thank you, Toby. And yes, how is that possible that people don't know about Trinity? So yes, if I just give a bit of background and history of the company, we are a company that was born 5 years ago. We have headquarters both in the UK and in the European Union. I am personally the managing director for the European Union, where we currently operate in 8 countries. And then through some of our clients, large corporates in the food value chain, we have also moved into Latin America, Asia, and Oceania. As a company, what we are is a science-first company. And what I mean by science-first is that at the moment we have a team of 46 scientists working with us. Some of them part-time. They belong to a total number of 17 universities across different places in the world. And then some of them are full-time employees. Why so many? Well, we focus, so we don't follow what some people call sort of a carbon tunnel vision. So not only we look at carbon, and we do it very well, and I can explain that in a second, but we also look at biodiversity improvements, water protection, mitigating soil erosion, and then basically sort of the jewel of the crown, which is taking into account all of these sustainability metrics into a natural capital valuation framework. And at the end of the day, when you talk to scientists, some of them are experts in different aspects. And then the other dimension, which is also very relevant, is that we have a vision of not leaving anybody behind. So we cater to a small farms, you know, could be like less than 1 hectare, to some of the largest estates in the world, and also different type of farming systems. We cover arable farming systems, horticulture, perennials, subtropical, different type of land uses, or grasslands, peatlands, croplands, and then obviously also all types of livestock farmers, as well as other special things like anaerobic digestion plants, biochar, pack houses, all of that. And then finally, we are obviously a software company, and that's just simply because we need technology and software and a platform in the cloud to basically scale. At the end of the day, you know, similar to what Kira was saying, we focus very much on supporting farmers to be more profitable, more productive, and more sustainable. But in order to get to a lot of them and to scale, we need to work and collaborate with companies from the food value chain and with with great partners like Bayer. So that's who we are. And that's what we do.
Okay, so the big challenge with data historically has been, you know, the old junk in, junk out problem. What are you doing to deliver accuracy and compatibility? Because that's been a huge challenge, hasn't it? You know, for example, you know, a farmer we did a webinar with 6 months ago was talking about, even with things like soil sampling, you know, samples the same soil 4 times a year in the same spot, he gets 4 different readings from 2 different labs, and he doesn't know what to do. And that accuracy challenge is reflected across the value chain, I think. But technology really seems to be helping here. Do you agree with that? And how is that happening?
Absolutely, absolutely. That is top of our mind. So there are different things that we do about it. Well, first of all, you need to have a system, and you could think about it as a model that is accurate. And that means basically using the latest science. Now, the latest science is very clear what it is. In the context of carbon, we are talking about the 2019 refinement on the IPCC guidelines for 2006. So everything we do is 2019 IPCC, and then within that, you have different type of methodologies. Some of them are more basic, some of them are more complex and accurate. And these are the so-called tier 2 and tier 3 methodologies, which effectively means that what you have behind the scenes, behind the user interface of Trinity, which is called Sandy, is not a spreadsheet. It's basically thousands of lines of code. You know, we do programming in R language, in Python language, all of that. So that's incredibly important. Now, to your point, no matter whether you may have or not IPCC 2019 science in a place, you need to make sure that the data that goes in there is sensible, right? And so for that, basically, we do different things. First of all, to the extent possible, and going back to what Kira was saying, we try to reduce the burden on the farmers. So we have integrations into farm management systems. At the end of the day, farmers need to use farm management systems. Some of them are paper-based. As time goes by, there are more digital systems, and we have integrations into several farm management systems, and we are actually, for instance, integrating with buyers systems. So that's number one. Number two is you can provide data also directly into the platform, and we have what we consider a very good user experience. We have actually won the so-called IF Design Award for user experience, super important, focusing on how this resonates with farms and with agronomists. And then at the same time, you can also download Excel templates from the platform. A lot of people have data in Excel. Put it in that format from the template, upload it, and then in that way you can sort of scale. We also have controls built into the platform in terms of different ranges and sort of standard deviations that people should follow when it comes to providing data in case they commit issues like mistakes like fat fingering. We also follow sort of the 80-20% rule in the sense that we look at the sensitivity of our models and we then tell people, hey, here you have 50 data points that you have to provide, but I don't know, 35% of them are required, but then the rest are optional or suggested. And in that way, people can focus on what is required. And so yes, sort of in this way is how we go about it. And then you were also talking about soil sampling and how soil samples can be different. So in the case of Trinity, what we've got is on the one hand the most advanced models, and those give you a number, and that number has an uncertainty associated to the number depending on how much data has been provided and the quality of that data. At the same time, we also allow farmers or users of the platform to upload data from soil samples. I'm talking about SOC, SOM, number of samples, depth, different data points. When they do that, you also have another number, which is the soil sampling number, and another uncertainty associated to it. And then what we do at Trinity is we combine both numbers, the model number and the soil sampling number. We do it in a statistical fashion, again, for accuracy purposes. And the uncertainty associated to the hybrid number that we get is lower than the other two uncertainties. So that's kind of how we solve for the problem.
Yeah, I think what you're saying is, in simple terms, the more layers of data we get, the more historical data we get, the more we're able to do comparisons, the more we're able to see what is more likely to be accurate. That was my simplistic understanding of what the last part of what you said.
Absolutely, that's it.
Okay, so the same question I had for Kira, for you, one. Some of this makes sense to some of us on this call. There's a lot of complexity here. When you're talking to farmers and they say, well, look, come on, I got to grow food. This data's mine anyway. Why would I give it to you? What's your kind of pitch to a skeptical group of farmers who are just feeling a bit overwhelmed with sustainability data requests? How do you kind of cut through and make that business case to them?
Yes, I mean, that's a great question. There are basically two different aspects to that question. So one aspect is that any farmer, just like anybody who's running a business, they want to be financially resilient. And any farmer understands very well that in order to be resilient today, there are practices that they need to put in place in their farm, and those practices happen to be sustainable. But that is sort of a consequence of being resilient, and that makes sense to anybody. And then the second point is around data privacy. We obviously follow, very stringent data privacy policies, GDPR, all of that. We as a company, the way in which we make money is we are software as a service, so we charge for licenses. We don't make any money by using the data from the farmers. The data belongs to the farmers, and they get access to their own accounts, and then they choose if they want to give access to that data to anybody that is working with them. It is their data, and it will always be their data.
Great. Well, that's really helpful. Thank you. Let's go into the Q&A section now, because we've got loads of great questions coming in now. We've clearly got a very informed audience, so thank you for your questions. I'm going to pick a couple at random, and let's see who would like to tackle them. So let's start actually with one for you, Kira. Someone's asking about your collaboration with ADM. I'm assuming you mean Archers Daniels Midland. Rather than anyone else. So what does that actually mean? Can you give us a very brief kind of bit of detail on that?
Yeah, of course. Maybe that's a good point to raise, is when I talk about the Bayer Ecosystem Services, the EMEA Carbon Program that we're working in, this is separate to our conventional business. And really, it's a new business model where we're offering project development. So for ADM being our customer in this case, we're doing the project development for them. So we're setting up the project. We're actually going to the growers themselves, like I said, with our Bayer supports and our agronomists, doing the data collection, bringing in all of that information, responsible for all the QA/QC, model running, all of these good bits, and providing the reporting and final sustainability numbers and targets to ADM. And that's the service that we're providing. So that's how this kind of partnership goes.
Thank you. Excellent. A succinct and articulate answer. Thank you, Kira. Valeria, I knew there would be lots of questions for you. So let's start out with the longest one from Lygia Azevedo. Lygia says, farmers are already eligible in the EU for financial compensation for regen ag and biodiversity measures via CAPs, e.g. delayed grassland mowing, cover crop no-till. Will the financial compensation from a carbon farming program supported by the European Commission be sufficiently higher than that of the CAP system to incentivize farmers from pursuing another financial system away from a well-established one? Valeria, that's quite a complex question. Do you feel like that's something you can comment on? You're on mute, I believe.
It's not complex at all.
Okay.
No, there was a similar question that I answered in writing. It's of course the common agricultural policy already has a lot in place. For the last 10 years, the common agricultural policy has more and more integrated the climate and environmental objectives. So in this current CAP, we have eco schemes. So top-up payments for farmers to do something good for climate or environment, and also agri-environmental measures, which is a similar concept under a different budget envelope. But we have a lot of available payments for farmers to carbon farming. The fact is that under the CAP, all these payments are based on compensating the costs incurred or the income foregone. These payments cannot be based on the tons of CO2 delivered because of some World Trade Organization rules. It's not possible to pay for that kind of results through the CAP. So currently, we don't know yet about the uptake of these eco schemes because the CAP the current one only started 2 years ago, 1.5 years ago. So we still have to see how farmers take up these subsidies. But whatever is the success of the current CAP, we still don't have many data about the impact of these practices. They're based on a list of things that the farmers have to do. But it's very difficult right now with the information we get from the member states to assess the mitigation impact, the adaptation impact, the biodiversity impact of these practices. We don't have the data. We just know these many hectares are under a practice that got a subsidy for no-till, but we don't know the impact of these no-till practices. So we hope that when the framework is in place, more and more common agricultural policy schemes will be tuned into these quantification methods, and this can also help us to better design the policy. When we have better data and better understanding of the impact, we can have better make better policies. So in the future, I suppose the CAP will integrate these result-based approaches in a way or the other.
Thank you. So from quite a complex question to one that sounds simple but is also complex, Abhishek Das is asking, how do you pay the farmer for carbon farming? Is there any standard framework? And Kira, perhaps I can put that to you. And we could also note, I suppose, that a number of companies in the agri space are coming out with internal carbon prices. And one of the world's largest food groups at our conference just 2 weeks ago said that they would be paying for verified reductions within Scope 3 beyond the footprint of what they're sourcing. So I guess there's one business model. Kira, what are your thoughts? And then perhaps Juan might have some comment, and Valeria too. Kira.
Yeah, so this is a really good question. For now, there's definitely no standards that we're implementing in our tool. And to be honest, the whole baseline of what we're trying to develop and offer is really a flexible solution that works for whoever our customer is at the end of the day. So really, we enable any of our customers to actually incentivize and put these different pricings through the tool so that they can showcase and be reflected through the final results at the end of the day. This will all also be very transparent to the growers in their program. And also, I imagine over time, this will become more unified. But currently, just as this market is growing, just seeing it more flexible in this space, allowing for people and different customers to test out and try. So, yeah.
Very much in line with the sort of regen ag approaches that we're seeing, lots of experimentation going on to gather that data so that we can layer it and start to see what works. Juan, any comment from you on this question?
Well, I think Kira's answer was very good. I would just add that at the end of the day, this is a market. So you have sellers who are the growers, the farmers, and then you have buyers. And so when you think about it, if you're a buyer and you can buy carbon reductions from different type of sectors, could be the energy sector, the forestry sector, the farming sector, those will have different prices attached to them. It's not the same if you are running a farm and you have people working in the farm and you are paying the salaries, and you are in European soil with salaries from Europe, and also with inflation that we have here and all of that, versus a different situation, a different sector in a different continent. And then the other aspect that is very important to take into account is sort of on the one hand, the so-called co-benefits. When you are doing farming, as Valeria was saying before, you also have a positive impact on biodiversity. You also protect water, like different things that should be valued. And then the other thing is, when you think about sustainability, holistically speaking, you have the environmental aspect, but you also have the social aspect. And you may want to support the farming community in the country where you operate as a business, if you're a buyer, versus other type of carbon farming, other type of credits from a non-productive sector where you don't have that social aspect.
Yeah, thank you. Very interesting. Valeria, anything you want to add on that question of how do we pay the farmer for carbon farming? I know it's a simple question with complex ramifications, as we've just heard from Kira and Juan.
No, as I said, a combination of public and private support. Maybe it's just it's a very broad answer, but it's an answer in the sense that, as I said, there are possibilities under the Common Agricultural Policy in the EU, but also the private markets, like Juan and Kira said, are more and more interested in these approaches. I just feel it's very important to stress two things: that carbon, like Juan said, is the main proxy we have, the main metric we have that we are basing our calculation on, but it's not the most important one, and we should not have a tunnel vision on carbon only and look also at water, biodiversity and resilience. And the second thing is to make sure that the farmers in this are a protagonist and owner of what they do, and not it doesn't become another way to put pressure on them and decrease their bargaining power. This is what I hear in conversations with the farmers a lot.
Yeah. So there's another question here that takes the same kind of line, but from a broader perspective. You know, from the individual farmer and them getting paid to the collaborative environment. Someone is asking, in that collaborative environment, let's say it's a kind of landscape or jurisdictional supply shed approach, for example, who claims the credits in programs executed by multi-stakeholder consortiums? So that's a very interesting one. At our conference's Innovation Forum, a subject of constant debate has been, do we want to incentivize everybody rushing for the same individual counting of data and credits from farmers and who owns that data? Rather, do we want to be having that landscape or jurisdictional approach where a group of companies contribute to the enhancement of nature, biodiversity, carbon, GHG issues within a landscape? But then the question is, what is the attribute accounting that allows them to have credit for doing that? And that's one of the key questions that's been raised at our events over the last 2 years or so. Complicated, I know, but which of you would like to volunteer to address that? Juan, I'm going to pick on you. What are your views on this difficult subject? And Lionel, if you want to come in and join us with a view, you're very welcome. Look, let's go to Juan first. Any comment?
Yes. So, well, first of all, if I understand properly the question, when it comes to claiming, you have two different parties in the table. You have the sellers, you have a consortium of different farmers who claims that something has happened, if you are aggregating everything. And then on the other hand, if you have a diversified portfolio of credits, same thing, and this is being bought by a consortium of buyers who can claim what. And so when it comes to doing this, you need to have clear allocation and accounting metrics, carbon accounting metrics. There are, and I'm not going to get very too technical, but there are different ways in which you can, in a fair, efficient, and virtuous fashion, do the allocation both for the sellers and for the buyers, always making sure that there is never double counting and also obviously double issuance, double claiming. Those three potential issues that you can encounter.
Thank you. Lionel, would you like to comment on that?
Yeah, maybe I can quickly add something on this one. And I think this question is indeed super, super important, because that, for me, that direct exactly to the core question that you need to discuss at the beginning of any project is, finally, is what you want to do. Is what you want to do and for what you want to do it. And that's one of the reasons why when we start any of our project with our clients, we always start our activities by running what we call the feasibility study. And this feasibility study is absolutely essential, because during this feasibility study, we will analyze let's say the agronomical, political, economical ecosystem that we have on the crop or on the farm or on the value chain or in the place we want to do it. And following this analysis, it might derive to very different opportunity, because, as we said, maybe you have some problem, for example, in terms of you cannot leverage carbon sequestration because of XYZ reason, because in this area soils are overloaded already. So you will focus, for example, on certain activities more linked to reduction. And might be that will trigger also some question about, okay, do we want to go for credit, or do we want to go for more for scope 3 evaluation project? And because of the ecosystem, because of the environment, because of the potential partners you have in your project, that might open totally different options. And that's why every case is so different. Every situation is so different. Kira was mentioning a project that we have been running in Poland, and we have been running analysis county by county in over 6 different counties in Poland. I can tell you, the solution is it can be totally different from one to another one, just because you have totally different ecosystem around your growers, around your farmers, and that can derive to very different type of project. So I think there is not one single made solution and answer to this one. Is my only recommendation is here, just be clear on and just understand your ecosystem before you start. And too often we see projects that want to kick off too quickly. And the fact to kick off too quickly on this project could derive to big mistake or to mistake on the setup of the project, and that's something that could be very dangerous for everyone in the project line.
Thank you. Excellent job on a very complex question. Well done. There's a couple of questions around the sort of developing countries and areas outside the EU. We might even soon classify the UK as that if Brexit continues to go so well. But I think Collins Manyasi is asking about perhaps sub-Saharan Africa and elsewhere, and he's asking in developing countries and rural economies, how can they utilize land use sustainability measures and adopt carbon and energy smart practices for sustainable food production? So there's a lot there, but I suppose the simple version of this question for you, Kira, and perhaps for you, Lionel, is how does your work now start to apply to those regions, and what kind of activities are you doing to help kind of break down some of those emerging barriers and helping small scale farmers? And I know there's a lot there to talk about, but if you could just give us a brief overview, that'd be great.
I'm super happy to take this one, and it cannot be more timely, let's say. So since we have been starting this project, we have been focusing a lot on continental Europe and let's say the Mediterranean borders. And sub-Saharan Africa was kind of the next step, because it's a different ecosystem. It's a different crop. It's totally different environment. And that's, we are just about to open certain focus on some Eastern African countries. So happy to follow up with anyone that was asking the question. You will find me on LinkedIn very easily, so I'm more than happy to connect with you. We are definitely thinking about what could be relevant in Africa, and for sure we do see a lot of potential. There is, and again, one thing we would be extremely careful when going to Africa. We don't want that Africa become the trash bin of the world for carbon. Because I think most of you guys understand the mechanism of carbon. When you are selling credits, basically the credits that you are selling are flying out of where you are. So you are basically taking back certain, let's say, emission from the rest of the world. So we have also to be extremely careful in the way we will manage projects in Africa, because we want also to be extremely sustainable in the right way of the sustainability. We want also not that Africa becomes sometimes, okay, I'm receiving all the emission and all the offset of all the world without any relevant compensation. So I think that there will be some mechanism that will be extremely interesting to build in Africa, and we are extremely excited to start investigating in this part of the world.
Thank you.
Maybe if I can just add one little quick piece onto Lionel, just for the digital side of things, if that's all right.
Yeah.
Okay, just to address the common challenge piece of that question, and also just our capabilities itself. So just adding on to what Lionel said and how we built our solution, one of the common challenges that can be found in smallholder farms is the lack of connection. And as Juan pointed out earlier, and with our MRV, and honestly, we have this problem within Europe anyways, you have the option of using different formats to collect the data. So we have this opportunity and an option to test and learn enabled already, where it can use offline methods to collect the data. And on top of this, the models that we're using are actually applicable across the world. So we're fairly robust from that sense and being able to test and learn in this space already.
Thank you. So we're getting towards the end, and I'm going to ask all of you for your kind of takeaways. What's your kind of 20 seconds on what you'd like everybody to remember from this webinar? We'll finish up with Lionel. Before we do that, I mean, there's some quite technical questions in here which you may want to answer afterwards, and we can have a look at doing that. But there's a really interesting question here from Gareth Steed. Sometimes it's good to sort of pull back and say, after an hour or so's conversation, Gareth is asking, what do the speakers feel are going to be the biggest challenges for the widespread rollout of data-driven agriculture? So if we sort of step back a bit from the detail we've been discussing, what do we think those are? That helps us perhaps lead into our kind of summary of the conversation. So Juan, why don't I start with you? Think about the next 5 years. What are those biggest challenges that Valeria and her colleagues need to help tackle along with the rest of us? Juan.
Yes, I mean, from my perspective, is two things. In terms of private markets, there needs to be the right kind of incentives for the farmers. And then thinking about regulation on the public markets. So here we have Valeria. That is incredibly important. A lot of our clients are waiting for all of this regulation to come into place, because obviously it builds trust and confidence. So I very much look forward to all of that to come.
Thank you. Kira, what would your view be on this?
I think mine would really build off of what Juan has just said. So I really think over this next 5 years, we've had kind of the digital revolution a few times in agriculture so far, and I feel like we've always had a bit of a dip in showing the value that we can provide from these digital insights and growers sharing their data with us. So hoping that these programs really evolve, keep moving along, the regulations and environments and standards come together to really build these frameworks and allow us to continue to show the value of growers providing the data and what we can do with that, and the agronomic changes that we can make and the impacts we can make from it.
Thanks, Lionel. It's a separate question from the sort of overall summary, but it's very much related. What are your brief thoughts before I ask Valeria for hers, and then we move towards a close?
Yeah, for me, the challenge is definitely the right decision, making the right decision, and for everyone, and including definitely the growers, because we know that that's a challenging one, to create the right value. It's really about this: is how do we support the decision-making process to create an asset that do have the value, because you can claim it, it's bulletproof, and definitely digital is so important in that respect.
Valeria, what would you say about challenges ahead?
So something I hear a lot, it's maybe not a barrier to roll out of data-driven agriculture, but to the rollout of carbon farming in general. It's access to finance, because many farmers maybe are in principle interested in these approaches, but it implies a risk, taking a risk, also a risk of lower yields for some harvests, and they need banks and the insurances to be behind them and ensure them they can take them through this risk period. So, and I hear it's very difficult for them to access this type of finance. So maybe there is still a gap in terms of financial services for carbon farming.
Yes, that's absolutely true. I mean, it feels to us at Innovation Forum often that the sort of ESG finance world related to sustainable supply chains seems to operate in a bit of a parallel universe half the time. They use different language. The conversations you have with them are all around these kind of reporting frameworks and disclosure and, you know, their own metrics. Whereas you go and talk to farmers and supply chain actors at the events we do, and events like this, it does seem like a real other world from where ESG is headed off to. And it does concern us, I think, that there isn't enough alignment there. So there certainly needs to be more of that. And of course, to your earlier point, Juan, the more data layers we have, the more business case we can make, the more we can get closer to levels of accuracy, the more it's financeable as some sort of asset, or in some way can be used as a mechanism for financing. So we're almost at time. The risk of asking you to repeat yourselves, I'll go around the room now, finishing with Lionel, and say, if you want this audience to remember one or two things that you have said, what are they? And do that in about 20 seconds each. So we'll start with you, Juan, then we'll go to Kira, and then Valeria, and then Lionel to close out. So Juan, what's your 20-second takeaway from this webinar?
Yes, very simple. We live in an ecosystem, and so each of us are just one piece of the puzzle. We need companies like Trinity, we need companies like Bayer, we need regulation like Valeria does, we need food corporates, and of course farmers, all of us to collaborate. If we don't collaborate and work together, this will not happen. Indeed,
very good. Kira?
Yeah, I really can just echo what Juan is saying. Collaboration is really key in this space, and also adaptability and flexibility. So making sure that our systems and tools that we're building are adaptable to the environments that we find ourselves. As we know, things are rapidly changing and evolving. And so we're there to collaborate and be able to provide these kind of solutions to our growers.
Thank you. Valeria, what's your takeaway messages for the audience?
So I hope I could pass the message that at the EU level, we are really interested in boosting this market, this universe of companies providing advisory services and data services and that can monitoring services to empower the farmers to switch to more sustainable and more resilient agriculture. So we're trying to boost this market with within our means.
Thank you. Lionel, over to you for some closing comments.
Yeah, first, before to give my three takeaway, I just want to re-congratulate, Valeria, because the work that EU is doing at the moment on this topic is just amazing. It's amazing. From the starting point, all the rules that they've been putting by the VDBs, like the gold standard, all the concept is very difficult. So great job. It's really amazing to bring this to such a complex territory like Europe. And for me, I would say three things. The first one is don't try to be opportunistic. That's the worst idea you can have on this topic. The second one is be scalable, because if you are not scalable in a territory like Europe, you will never create value, because if you are too small, you will be killed by your fixed cost. So be scalable and find the partners that allows you to be scalable. And my third one will be just do not forget the growers. They are growers at the end of the chain. They have cost. They have super complex things to manage every day. So do not forget the growers and be there to support their activity. And that's absolutely essential.
Well, thank you all for a brilliant last hour. As somebody said once at the end of a famous film, it's been emotional. I've certainly learned a lot. I think the audience has too. I suspect our speakers have as well. So thanks to all of you for your excellent insights and your forthright comments. And of course, you, the audience, for your brilliant questions. We'll continue this series and you'll be hearing more about it from us. Thank you to Bayer for their support. Without that, it couldn't happen. And we think we're playing a role in helping raise the level of understanding of these complex issues as they evolve towards delivering a better form of sustainability and certainly more resilience. So thank you all. This will be available with some brief editing on our YouTube channel and on our podcast stream. Just search for Innovation Forum. In the meantime, thanks so much to all of our speakers and to all of you, and we'll be back in touch very soon. Have a wonderful day and thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.